What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 38. 38 of my journey as a startup founder building my own AI native search platform. I know it's a mouthful, but think of it like a baby Google or a baby Perplexity, but it's not a Google, nor it's a Perplexity. It's a rethink of how I think a modern search platform should look like. And I'm starting it by myself without any funding. And I spent last year and a half building it after quitting my job at Google. And here we are. This is episode 38. Let me check my microphone. Oh, it's using my phone microphone. It should be using, okay, this microphone. Testing, testing. Okay, it works. Okay, yeah, I have a microphone right here. The DJI Chinese microphone. Okay, today, let's see. I have, by the way, just quick context. Not a whole lot of people watch this. Actually, no one watches this, but I do this in the interest of just my future self. And also, I suspect people may want to know how I went about building this thing. And so this sort of these talks are really for that audience, for my future self and someone who's curious. And also to inspire other Googlers and people at tech companies who are making a lot of money, but at the end of the day, they may be capable of being a founder or starting something of their own and contributing back to the community, to the world that way, um, leading to more satisfaction and more impact, but can be scary. Not everyone is maybe right for that kind of life, and the timing matters, all of that. But I do think that over time, I hope, I genuinely hope people can know a little bit about my story, and 0.001% maybe can get inspired. Heck, even 1%, if that person gets inspired, I think it'll lead to a better world. My fundamental belief behind that sort of telling is that a world full of very large tech companies dominating in AI, in technology, well, just you don't have to be a genius to kind of make a comment on it. It doesn't seem right. I always say the equivalent of Starbucks taking over the world versus a good balance of Starbucks and mom and pop coffee shops. And so that's a much better world to live in. And that's exactly the idea. So in today's discussion, I try to keep this talk under 30 minutes, maybe in 15 minutes in the future. But today I want to talk about something crazy. This is insane. I talk about how I built architecture, and today is a very sort of tiny component of my architecture that I want to kind of dive in, because I don't want to just keep talking high level. Uh, Today is one of those sessions where we are sort of very, very deep in the sort of architecture. And one of the things that, to kind of give you context, before I start talking about what you're seeing on screen, one of the components of the architecture is to basically fetch the latest and greatest data from the web in response to the query that the user is asking. It could be just news, it could be stock prices, it could be some kind of compute, or it could be just reviews, it could be anything. Even though the query may be as simple as what's the capital of Brazil? Um, Along with sort of an obvious answer, it would be nice to talk more about the capital, Brazil, and maybe even talk about what's going on there, but quickly. And so that requires you to call, a lot of these APIs selectively. There are many, many, many APIs. You can imagine. I've added few, and over time I'll add more to increase the capability. Every time you add more, it increases the capability of the search platform. Just lately I've added, I started with the calculator so people can add calculation queries. I know it's obvious, you can just ask Google, but it's bedrock for something big to come, something larger. And I can give you some clues. Like the next obvious step is to convert the calculator to a compute kind of setup so you can ask more complicated questions like, value of pi to the 100th or something even more interesting, right? Analyze this data. All of this ChatGPT can do, but what we are trying to do, what I'm trying to do, is to give a small company alternative, rethink it from scratch with an AI native mindset. So it creates interesting decisions. So user experience is kind of interesting. When you'll see what I've built, it doesn't look like a chat app at all. It's not a chat app. That's why I say it's not a Google, it's not a ChatGPT. But I think it's important to put this out. And the excitement that I have is, even though everything I've talked about you can do with a basic Google AI mode search or ChatGPT search, what it will lead to over time as I build upon it. That's the excitement. And I always tell people, like every time people say, what's the point of me starting something? Everything's already built, everyone's already working on it. But my very simple answer to them is, you don't do for other people, like in terms of competition, you do it because you think you have something to express. And every time you genuinely express yourself, be authentic, something beautiful always comes out, something different always comes out. And as long as you can marry that with a real world problem and a real world user base that has that problem, like as in willing to pay for it, all the ikigai stuff, I think that's all you need. That's all you need. And here in my case, the real world problem is just a lot of people are fed up of Google. Just do a search on, Google search lately. What's happening? I don't like Google search. I don't want an alternative. There's so many on Reddit, so much on YouTube. It's not in the millions, but there are definitely people in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Clearly, something is going on that Google is not able to satisfy. It could be just privacy. It could just be ads. It could be intelligence. I don't know. Or I do know. I have my theories, but I don't know what each and every one's thinking about. Um, so that's the target audience, people, and especially a subset of that is our creators, people who create things for a living. It could be any form of creative. Um, and those are the users I want to target, give them this ability, a new way to discover knowledge, and do it such that it's not search and response and be done. It's a loop. So you search, the system, the AI learns about you, and then hopefully over time predicts and proactively gives you something before you need, right? I mean, everyone's going in this direction. I'm not sharing something extraordinarily new, but when you start thinking that way, I have my way, my own authentic way I want to build this, that I feel there is a value, and that's my journey. Even though everyone else is doing it already or has done it already, I have my own way, and I do hope and believe that there is a small percentage of users who will appreciate it. And not to mention, the core philosophy of the startup is user-centric. So decisions are made in the best interest of user. That's what I mean by user-centric company. And there are pillars. I've talked about a user-centric company pillars in previous videos. But when you put that together, a small company alternative, doing it in a unique way that really puts user in the center, where the decisions are made in behalf of benefit of the user, with some monetization so I can keep this going and have a decent life. I think it sums up to be a pretty good story. So that's my background. Today, I'm talking about the layer where you fetch queries, make all these API calls, fetch the latest data, the AI, the LLM does it, and then puts it together. Now, what happens is when you put it together with an LLM, basically, you can just say, hey, summarize this. Obviously, a lot more happens in my platform, but in simplistic term, that's what you can say. I fetched the queries like Tesla stock prediction next month. You can fetch the latest price. You can do some other data fetching and ask the LLM, hey, summarize. But what you can do a step further if you want to go is ask another LLM. And I did a video on this, my previous video, LLM as a judge, where other LLM can review the response that you've generated so far with the query in mind, with the user profile in mind, knowing what kind of user this person is, ideally in a privacy conscious way, and some other variables that we know at the moment. maybe on what's going on in the world, the Iran war, all that matters in decisions like questions like this, like predictions. You can put it together, and then you can have AI as a judge look at the response and say, hey, is this a decent response? Can we do better? And then if the judge thinks that you can do better, then we try again and again. And you can imagine this like a loop. You can loop over multiple times. Obviously, the more you loop, the more cost, the more latency. So there's a certain balance. And how do you make that intelligent? That loop and decision making is what you're seeing on the screen. And this is just a kind of flavor of someone who's curious sort of how some of these things work. This is sort of, it doesn't give you the whole picture, obviously, there's so many moving parts. But if someone's thinking, hey, what is this thing doing? How does it work? Well, this is how it works, what I described. And this, what you see is just a sort of very small component, but that drives a big part of the entire sort of looping and the judging part. So it's a small cog, but very, very critical cog, what you see on the screen. And you can see sort of current and how I'm improving it, but focus on the right-hand side. In before I was just doing deadlines, like I don't want to talk about it, but let's focus on where I'm going, the budget. So you can, one of the ways you can do this is you can identify a budget, how much the user wants to pay for it in terms of tokens or time or money or some other factor. Or you don't even have to ask a user an estimate. There are lots of ways. But once you know that this is the budget, it could just be time. I want to respond no more than 10 seconds. You can then quantify that into all of this. So I have something called time budget. And of course, by the way, I've used the AI to kind of help me with this. Codex is a big part of coming up with this, and Claude both have helped me out. So time budget, then there's thinking budget. So you can also control the thinking. These are all very simple things. If you're an engineer and you know what I'm talking about, you should start getting very excited as I go down the list. Retrieval, like tool budget, that just means all the API calls and compute calls, all that, as in external calls. Card budget, that's just UX. Local failure budget, so this internationalization, user preferences. Some users don't want to pay a lot of time or a lot of money or spend a lot of tokens. And then runtime budget ledger is just sort of tracking everything together, putting it all together. It's a ledger of putting. This is what's here is to find query budget envelope. Now I'm thinking about this and kind of implementing this, but I didn't want to do this because first I felt it was overkill. That's why you see current and proposed. For V1, it is too much. I felt for a long time. I thought it was overkill, but then I was sleeping at night and I was like dreaming, and I woke up and I'm like, you know what? So much of it depends the the quality of this product, because it's a very simple product. You put a query, you get a response back, and the only thing to judge is like the speed, maybe the UX to some extent, and the quality of the response for and quality is the most important thing. And that's all I have to show. And I have to do my best. Like I can't just put something out that just is like, yeah, you just put some bunch of content in AI and just share the response. That's no good. The bar is very high for me. And so that's when I was like, okay, I think it's time. And so that's when sort of I worked with Claude and Codex to come up with this. And now I'm in the process of implementing it, actually testing it. This is now implemented. And if still have my doubts because it adds a lot of complexity, and as a one-person company, for every query, this is kind of being set and processed for the, behind the scenes. It's kind of a little bit, I feel squirmish, like if it breaks, if something's wrong, if the response not good, how will I know? How will I pinpoint? It's because of the budget for model thinking. It gets very complicated, but I've made the decision to go with it, and I'll add some transparency metrics and some things to kind of help me see behind the scenes. But it does sort of, I feel, put me in a really good shape if this goes through, the testing goes through. I'm satisfied. Right now, I'm still, like I said, implementing. It gives me a lot of leverage. Now I have the ability to kind of scale up and scale down every query. I don't know if Perplexity, Google, they all may have this. Google, by the way, I was part of Google Search, and that was the traditional search org. And we used Gemini to synthesize the AI mode answer, but it was not very sophisticated a couple of years back when I joined or when I was working. And I don't know anything about Perplexity. Um, but I think this kind of this kind of component, I want to say, paired with that architecture of LLM as a judge gives me so much power because now I can the whole system is kind of you have now more controls. You can set the time, you can set the limit, this or this and the quality of the response and the time it takes changes. If this works, it's like boom, the secret X factor for me. But like I said, I have my doubts because it adds a lot of complexity for a one-person company. I mean, everything I'm doing everything, front end, back end, analytics, testing, uh, developing, stabilizing, marketing. Oh, I haven't started marketing, but I have to do that. And all from my pocket, from my credit card. So it's scary. And also, one of the things I've developed a mindset to say no most of the time and only say yes what really aligns with my values and the values of this company. And being a user-centric company, this kind of stood out as something that was worth the complexity and investment. So I went forward with it. So I wanted to share this. This is one of the first videos where I've gone this deep on how you can kind of budget a search query. And by the way, this can be done. It's not just for search. I'm calling it search because people understand it. But at the end of the day, it's an information retrieval and information processing platform. You could be processing mortgage applications, and you can apply this kind of technique because every stage in your processing of the mortgage application, you need intelligence to decide where to route, whom to route. Maybe there's a human in the loop, or you want to process with the latest data that is shared by the government or what's put out there to cross-reference, maybe credit reports, all of that. And all of that, you need to decide the budgeting, how long, how much complexity, how much intelligence you want. Some steps you don't need that much intelligence or you don't want to spend that much time. In some places you may be worth it. A mortgage maybe is not the best application because it's people expect it takes several days. But something like a stock, should I purchase a stock or not? At the moment, like, should I purchase Tesla stock right now? It went down 10%. Should I? If you're building and working for hedge funds or some other company, you can apply this because then you can kind of query, oh, I have to have a decision in the next 15 minutes. Here you go, these are the settings, and do your best. And basically what you're doing is all the compute you have, you're doing the best to get a response back in that much time. And oftentimes that's what makes a difference between a good decision, a bad decision, a good bet and a bad bet, and you versus the competition. Gives you tremendous power. So I hope this will turn out. It's one of the more complicated pieces in the architecture. I don't have very many such complicated components, but this is, and like I said, I'm nervous, very nervous. Even today, I'm nervous right now. I'm nervous. I thought a lot about doing this and I went for it. I woke up, like I said, middle of the night, and I'm like, I woke up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night. I got up, got in my office, home office, and we started working on it. I just felt we have to do it. So that was query budget enveloping. This is a term I made up, but I'm sure in industry there are other terms for it. But fascinating. It's incredible component. What a superpower this is if this works out. So there's a couple more things I want to talk about. I have some more screenshots. This is sort of a previous screenshot of where I was still calling it just deadlines. At that time, I was just managing deadline, like, oh, or timeout, how long to spend. But something I want to call out, and this is sort of going one level below, is what are things you can control. So I have something called hard configuration or hard variables that you never change as you sort of loop and iterate and revise your answer or a response. Then there are soft that are adaptable, and then you have to merge. And then some are budget driven. So as you use up the budget, the leftover budget is how you use the leftover budget, just like how you plan your monthly shopping or whatnot. You have this much savings, you have allocated this much budget this month to spend, you've spent already this much, this is what's left. use the left and for future shopping. And this is the same thing. So this was sort of even one level below how you do this. Then I have some things that this is interesting. Just kind of some of the tool I keep talking about tools, APIs. These are some of the things, APIs that I'm now thinking about. Some of already implemented. Sports, calculators now, compute. So it's a little old already. News is already done. Some options like Brave News API, etc. Academic, I'm thinking about it. Reddit, etc., etc. Now, this is something, the last thing I want to talk about. One of the things people will be thinking about is how do you manage working with these AI tools and AI coding when you have such a large code base in mind? For one person company, it's pretty large. And one thing I want to share is what I do here. I now check in with AI as well. So, and then AI tool completes the thing and updates. And one thing I do is I have for every session a unique ID, and I wanted something that I can kind of relate to and understand and remember versus like just a random string or random number or a UUID. And so every time I create a session, and I create lots of sessions, oftentimes some running in parallel. And I've talked about this before. I try to not have more than parallel session, more than 3. I've gone 5 and I get bad headache, really like head starts pounding. 6, I've done 6 and it was overkill for me. Like it took it too far, and then you have conflicts and all these things happening. So 3 is a good number, maybe, but for most people, stick with one or 2 sessions. And anyway, now Claude Code has throttles your limit, has weekly limits. So if I do 3, 4 sessions, I use up all my Claude Code quota. Anyways, this allows me to kind of remember and note, and in my docs also have a journal where I maintain all the things I'm working on and all the things complete. This gives me a really nice clue. This was done. So here you can see I have Japan, Hokkaido, Sapporo as one session. And so those are all the check-ins are from that session. And then I have Chile, again, just random country region is what I came up with, where you can do whatever you want. This is another session, Chile, Vina. Then there is another Japan. We have 2 Japan sessions going on. Very cool. By the way, I'm thinking Japan is maybe my first country where I can spread the word. Maybe I like Japan. And it's such a challenge to get this whole thing working in Japanese natively. Including the UX is another thing. And top to bottom, end to end. My bar would be that this should appear as if some Japanese has developed it. I'm thinking about it very seriously. But anyways, and this is interesting, 2 Japan sessions come up. And then Norway is a session in Norway. So the only thing is, like, if you do this, then you can track which check-ins are from which sessions. And then as long as you have some docs or journals you're maintaining which session, you can see it's much easier to manage what was done in what session. And also this way you can see which check-in is from where. Otherwise, you just see description and I was getting lost. So this is a tip. Anyways, that's it for today. I will see my future self in the next one. Next week, I'm planning to attend Google Cloud conference. But I want Google Cloud credits. I'm paying by for my credit card. And come on, I'm an ex-Googler. Come on, Google should give me some credit. Look what I'm building on Google Cloud. If this becomes something, they'll get so much business. I have to go talk to them. And last time I was there, a bunch of folks from the Google Cloud team are there, so I'll go talk to them. So that's one of the reasons I'm spending time. All the airfare is so expensive, hotels so expensive, everything in thousands of dollars. I didn't want to go to just save money, but this is kind of the life of a entrepreneur with no funding. This is the life. But I may go. So it should be exciting. See you in the next one. Bye.